Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Animalata Corner. As you know, this is Mental Health Awareness Month. And as you know, we're doing stories about mental illness when it's Mental Illness Awareness Month. And here's the first story. Ellis Perkins, it's about a mother who has a son that's schizophrenic. Ellis Perkins was a Buffalo, New York Scientologist who had been a senior auditor for years in Scientology. She and had an glass, she was a glass artist in the United States around Western New York. Perkins was a wife, a mother, and she was also a daughter. She was very compassionate woman who dedicated her life to a cult that was not even worth it. Elli made a big mistake by joining that cult. This whole episode will be about Elli Perkins and her life in Scientology. Elli Perkins was born around 1949 in Rochester, New York, to Matthew and Stephanie. She was born into a Jewish household. She would attend all the public schools with her then boyfriend, Donald Perkins. After graduating school, she would attend Brigham and Hampton University, also in New York. She would major in art, and she also an artist. She would travel across the United States while painting glasses. She would look into she should have looked into resources like government grants and some social media. But Elise Cares, also an artist, didn't start out as well at first. She didn't sell any of her work, and she got discouraged. She was very quiet and was really shy. She got right out there and tried to sell her art. After her career as an artist started to take off, and all of a sudden, everyone wanted her work. Then she met Donald Perkins. Well, she went to school with Donald Perkins, really. She would devote her he was a devout Christian, and those two would get married. Then a year later, after they got married, Ellie and Don had Jeremy on December 20th, 1974. Then a year later, in 1975, they would have Danielle. But 3 years later, Elise and Dawn never sent Jeremy and Danielle to school. Ellie would always homeschool those two. While Jeremy and his sister was getting homeschooled, somehow they found out that Jeremy had schizophrenia. They wanted so much to help their son. They were so desperate in getting him help, but they couldn't. Because, believe it or not, there is no such thing as a cure when it comes to mental illness. There's treatment. Then on March 13th, 2001, Elise Perkins would be stabbed to death in her home in New York by Jeremy. He had stabbed her 77 times and then dragged her into one of the rooms. Then later, she was found dead in her own pool of blood. Then the police was called. Then later, her son was found wandering at a university. He told law enforcement that he was looking for his 2,000-year-old girlfriend. Then the police would arrest Jeremy on the spot and took him to the station and charged him with murder. Then during the trial, Judge Troutman ordered a psychiatric evaluation to determine whether or not he has schizophrenia. Then little behold, Jeremy was diagnosed with schizophrenia. The psychiatrist reported back to the judge, sent their report back to the judge. While he was being tried for second-degree murder, his defense story told the jury that he was not responsible for his mother's death because he is mentally ill. But the prosecutor didn't say anything about it. The issue, however, it was revealed that the whole family was involved with Scientology, which was a cult. Then after the court heard the case, he was found not guilty. After the trial, he was placed in a mental health facility for the rest of his life. Then nevertheless, Scientology destroys mental health in families at the end. Then all in all, that whole episode would have been about Elli Perkins and her cult. Would be about Elli Perkins and the cult. When overall she was born in a Jewish household, which was even more baffling. Where ultimately Scientology would come into the picture and had sold more of her glass art. Just because Scientology came into the picture does not mean it suddenly picked up business. Never. It would be because of her talents. While Jeremy and his sister was getting homeschooled when they found out that Jeremy had schizophrenia, then little behold, behind Jeremy was diagnosed with schizophrenia. Then the psychiatrist would send the report back to the courts. Then in conclusion, the whole court would find him not guilty. Then was sent to a mental health facility at the end. And that's how Elli and her life in Scientology went as she died at the end. Those are one of the cases that happened while in the hands of Scientology. Because of mental illness, Jeremy heard all these voices in his head and just snapped, then killed his mother. And that's what the result was. She ended up dead. Now, speaking of Mental Health Awareness Day, over the weekend, Scientology observed that day as somehow a death day because of psychiatry. But little behold, Laura FM and Ashley went into action and started protesting and tried to bring awareness to what Scientology does. Because on that day, every year, they would go out and observe that day, that saying psychiatry is dangerous. And of course, David Miscavige, as usual, is behind it. But was he there? That is foreseen. But guess what? Laura said that there were sounds coming out of the building, and there was. And then at the end of the speeches, everybody came out of the building, and Laura was waiting for them with their cameras. So she started to use the camera on them. Security was there, and they couldn't do much because now in Los Angeles, the LAPD won't come to the rescue because of the cameras. They were caught on the cameras, so now they got their own security, or unless they had it all along, but had them in the process too. So they're just using their own security cameras. I mean, security guards. And she shined it right onto those security guards. And then Ashley was definitely working the sidewalks. And she got threatened by one of the Scientologists, which was horrible. Those people should be ashamed of themselves, even though some of them are good people, but in the wrong place, in the wrong organization. But however, Laura was there, and she was stealing the show on Mental Illness Awareness Day. So she just went right into action, and then a Scientologist with the camera started to try and intimidate her, because that's what they use their cameras for, to intimidate. And then, little behold, usually former Scientologists and people who were never in Scientology turn the tables on them as usual and would just film them too at the same time. So it was camera versus camera, Scientologists versus former Scientologists. They were using their cameras on each other. And it was just so cool. Laura was really telling him about what it's like being in Scientology. Was he listening? No, because guess what? Usually they were told not to talk about Scientology. And L. Ron Hubbard always says communication is a solvent. I hope I said it right because I'm in trouble. As a universe's solvent. I think that's what it. Well, anyways, they were neck and neck, camera to camera, and they're filming them. Only the Scientologist was snapping the pictures while Laura was filming. So while she was filming everybody, a security guard would run up to her and try to bump her. They would use other tactics like that one to try and rope a person, a Scientologist, a former Scientologist, or a protester into a fight. As you know, and of course, they would go to the blue building and would continue on with that whole day at the blue building. Well, that should do it for today. And you know what? On Mental Health Awareness Day, oh, wait, it is not the end. As you know, Tom Cruise's movie premiere started over the weekend. And as you know, Prostate Alex was in action protesting with the rest of the protesters. And I might have mentioned this before, but who knows? But someone from Scientology made a phone call and told the police that a protester wants to pour gasoline over Tom Cruise and set him on fire, which was ridiculous because they ain't find a thing on him. Now, could it have been Tom who got somebody to call them? Maybe, maybe not. But it looks like there was no evidence suggesting otherwise, but hey, maybe that would be the case. And let's see. And of course, everybody was back in Hawaii from Hawaii. Natalie, Aaron, and Farrell Cheryl. And they were back protesting. And I think they were aware of Tom Cruise's premiere, which would hit the theaters at the 23rd of this week. I'm sorry about the last time I got it mixed up. His premiere might have been on over the weekend or during whatever. But however, this May 23rd, 2025, Tom Cruise's movie premiere will hit the theaters. So, all you animal rights activists, just get out there and show your pride for the animals. Because as you know, all the animals are getting intimidated. Use them to intimidate their former Scientologist. And they would use rat poison to kill them to get even with them. They use them as collaterals. So make your picket signs and get right out there and protest at your local movie theater that Scientology kills dogs for collateral. They want to intimidate their former Scientologist by hurting and killing their animals. So get out there with your signs and load up your camera, because this week's Mission Impossible, the final movie, will be released. So he says. But would that be the last one of Tom Cruise's movie? No, because he's working on Top Gun, another installment of the movies. Now, in the word of Chris, I mean, he's also a podcast host. his career's over, but I'm intending to believe it because when Night and Day, the Mission Impossible movie was out, he was at number 10. Mission Impossible was at number 10, which is not a usual Tom Cruise rating. It usually rates at number 1. The Barbie movie was at number 1. It went right ahead of Mission Impossible. And usually all of Tom Cruise's movies are at number 1. But would his movies continue to hit number 1? Maybe, maybe not, but he is getting older and all his ugly secrets were coming out. Isn't that a hoot? That he has indigent slaves working for him. He doesn't pay them a dime. So he's taking advantage of the free labor. They're actually think they're helping, but no, they're just being used. Which I got a better idea for you, Miscavige and Cruz. Why don't you guys participate in helping other people by walking an old lady across the street or picking up all the trash and donating it to poor and get Scientologists to do that? But no, we want to shove more money down David Miscavige's pocket. And that movie and that premiere, who knows? With the new Top Gun movie coming out, well, he's working on it now, it looks like. But however, do you think the Top Gun movie's going to hit number 1 when it comes out in theaters? Who knows? But what he's doing to people and animals, outrageous. And the way they use their animals is atrocious. And that's the way they silence their victims. Those are one of the tactics they use. They murder their dogs. And we all know how territorial dogs are when it comes to people or strangers coming into their house when they don't even know them. They would harm the animal, kill them, and they would be used as collateral. They do that to intimidate their victims. And as you know, they do that to reporters, their critics. And as you know, we all have them. We just, whether we like it or not, we're going to have it. Some of them we take with a grain of salt, and maybe we learn from them, our mistakes, and pointed it out. And sometimes we would think, you know what, this is unnecessary. And we might not like what they say if they heard it and not the right information, or they just spit out anything that comes out of their mouth. But when Scientology gets criticism, they don't care. They just wanna go after that critic. They don't know how to handle comments at all. They just either physically or verbally harm all their critics, journalists, and former members. It is just unreal. They would never learn. So get out there with your picket signs and camera and protest and let those movie owners know that abuse is not great. Cults are control groups who never should be praised for being a cult. Especially Scientology, who abuses people. And not only they abuse people, they abuse their families and their pets. Pets are also part of the family. And children shouldn't be made to be adults in a little person's body. They should be children and be treated like children. They shouldn't be pulled out of school or a form of schooling and just be put to work. And they shouldn't be sent to a place that's disguised as a school and put them to work. Because as you know, every moment David Miscavige gets dolled up in those two-piece suits, a child is working slave labor. So, why does Tom tolerate it? He's a perpetrator. He was brainwashed at the same time. So not only he's a perpetrator, he's a victim. Should victims made to be perpetrators? It'll depend on the situation. But when his buddy, who's a leader of a cult, would do that to his buddy, would that be his real buddy? Not if he's going to brainwash him. And then turn him into brain mush and turn it into mashed potatoes. Okay, tomorrow I might be on once, maybe twice. I'm going to try and have a story for you tomorrow. See what else I can dig up. Sorry, everybody. See what else I can dig up for you. And I will also have a cool recipe for you. It's a vegan cream cheese. So stay tuned tomorrow. And I hope you tune in too, because guess what? That vegan cream cheese is also for you. I'm giving you the recipe, not only to you guys, but to Aaron Smith Levin. So hopefully I'm getting him to eat his vegetables, hopefully. So see you tomorrow.